Once upon a time, there was a charming lady called Turkish Delight. She was kind, quite loyal, and very artistic, but she was so self-obsessed that she built a mosaic statue of herself. She had only just finished it when suddenly she died.
Her ghost walked tall and came to brood over her statue, guarding it for all eternity. Anyone who damaged the statue would turn into Habba Baba.
One morning, not many months later, her grieving son, Cola Delight, was playing peacefully on his computer when an electrical storm whipped along the valley, and before you knew it, he was sucked right into the game. At that very same moment, the hall where the statue stood filled with a stench of onions mixed with Haribos. It was Guzzle Puzzle, a notorious soul gobbler.
He drove his claws between the delicately placed pieces of the mosaic, tearing them apart in a frantic endeavour to catch hold of the sweet delicacy which was Turkish's soul.
Although Kola had been fairly surprised to find himself inside his game rather than gazing at it, he knew how it worked and was rather enjoying it, until, that is, Guzzle Puzzle's attack on his mother caused the turbulence to begin. Snakes were no longer nice jellies, they writhed and spat at him like real ones, and the other sweets were no longer pretty decorations, they seemed to be out to get him.
And soon they succeeded. Gasping for breath, Cola was dragged up, along, up, down. He didn't really know where he was going. The air grew hot, and he felt he was being stretched, thinner and thinner.
And then calm returned. The snakes turned back into silly little jellies. The other sweets stopped grabbing him, and he was able to sit up and look around.
His ears picked up a faint noise, as if someone was in distress, screaming even. A little afraid, but telling himself it was only a game, he began to creep towards the sound.
As the sound grew louder, he saw something whirling around and around. And then he saw her. It was his mother. She was struggling wildly, held tight in the grip of... Who was it?
Kola did not recognize the fearful hands that were forcing more and more sugar down Turkish's throat.
As he jumped up, determined to prevent this monster from carrying on hurting her, she slumped down comatose, dying of an overdose of sugar. The monster released his grip, gave a shriek of delight as Turkish breathed her last,
Then a scream of horror as it realized Cola had recognized him. He vanished, spirited by snakes, leaving only a bin labelled "So Toxic Waste."
Bending over his mother's body, Kola didn't know what to do. Clearly she had not simply died, she had been murdered, and he was determined to get his revenge. But how? At that moment he felt impelled to look up. Kola was puzzled. Was that Smarty Snickers, the famous detective? Smarty was pointing to a lever nearby. Kola reached out. Smarty nodded, and Kola boldly pulled it. A smell of chocolate and rotten eggs nearly overwhelmed him, and in a whirl he landed with a bump just beside the monster.
With a shock, Cola saw that this monster man looked just like he might look himself if he was that old and evil. Sir Toxic must be his father! In a flash, Sir Toxic was upon him, wielding snakes in both hands, trying to wrap them tight round Cola's neck.
Again, Cola saw Smarty Snickers. What was he trying to say this time? He was thumping his chest. And again, what on earth? Ah, he got it. Struggling hard, Cola managed to slip one hand inside his shirt. He inched his fingers along to get a grip on the polo he wore every day.
The magic polo that had been the last sweet his mother had given him, and as his fingers gripped it, he found himself drawing away from the battle.
The sounds grew fainter, and he saw that he and Smarty were spinning together. The scent of roses was growing stronger and stronger, and suddenly his mother's ghost joined him. And when they touched down right beside the statue, the gross smell of Guzzle Puzzle nearly made him sick.
But at the sight of Turkish's ghost, Guzzle bolted, dropping the soul in his haste. Smarties too ran off, but he was after the sweets in the canteen. Cola and his mother's ghost were left alone.
Cola, the ghost uttered his name gently. Justice will be done. Toxic will not get away with this. Look. And through the opening of the statue, Cola saw Toxic back in the jungle.
His precious snakes were turning on him, hissing and chasing him. As Toxic ran, Cola could see how close he was to the river. And splosh, with a sizzle, he was in it. And he obviously couldn't swim, because in no time the waters were smothering him. As he breathed his last gasp, Cola heard him say, "At least I didn't get eaten by snakes."
Cola, the ghost continued, you have seen too much and loved me too much. You will join me here in this hall. We will be together forever, and we will make everyone happy, because as they go past, we will give them each their favourite sweet.